representation of agencies, practitioners. So we got some analyst folks. See a lot of familiar names, some new faces, new names, new organizations we hadn't worked with in the past. But again, Keenan Armstrong, looking forward to a great session here today. Some housekeeping items. So this is a large format webinar. I think we're not opening cameras or microphones, but there is a Q&A chat. My colleagues, Sam and Nick and I will all try to kind of address those questions as they come in live or, after the event or kind of towards the end. But don't hesitate to ask questions. With that, I think we'll get started here 4 minutes after the hour on an almost Friday. So, all right, safe harbor statement. So, two items to touch on here. First, we're going to be maybe talking about some forward-looking functionality. The timeline for general availability on some of those tools might shift to the right, to be determined. Also, in the interest of like brevity and telling an end-to-end story and confidentiality in a sense, the use case that my colleague Sam is going to demonstrate here later is kind of a combination of different components of real-world use cases from around the Department of Interior. So we're working with several different teams, some of folks who are here today, but we're kind of borrowing and stealing different pieces of all these different use cases to tell an end-to-end story. So I'll try to highlight throughout the presentation like where the applicability is, and pinpoint, certain functionality that's important to different teams, but that's kind of the setup. Before we get into some of the slides I have and, the actual use case walkthrough itself, we do have a federal sandbox available for DOI. This is a no-cost, easy, accessible trial environment. You can email federalsandbox@databricks.com, or I'm sure if you have your phone out, you can scan the little QR code and request access. There's some folks already in DOI leveraging this trial today. Great way to get in there and engage with the platform, get educated, do some experimentation, albeit following the rules and guidelines of your particular agency, but very cool to make that available to DOI. This is a new offering from Databricks. So the agenda today, and Nick, please monitor the questions as they come in, and I'll try to do that when I pass it over to Sam as well. But the agenda, so starting off with just orienting like where Databricks is in the federal marketplace, a little bit about our footprint and some broader use cases in the space. I'm going to be sharing a handful of slides on our data intelligence platform, what it is, how it works, some high-level components that we're going to share today. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sam. So he'll be walking through kind of a look and feel of the Databricks unified platform. And then we have a really cool kind of end-to-end use case that, again, borrows different pieces from around DOI. I'll share more about what that looks like here in a bit. And then Q&A, we're going to save a little bit of time at the end, try to address it live as well where we can, but don't hesitate to ask some questions. So Databricks and our federal organization. So first and foremost, like we are not a bootstrap Gen AI company that are probably a dime a dozen these days. We are a well-established organization recognized by different industry analysts in multiple different categories. The founders of Databricks created some of the most popular open source software used around the world today. So Apache Spark, Delta Lake, MLflow, Unity Catalog. And we've now launched Databricks into the federal marketplace with over, I think, 55 at last count federal agencies using Databricks in some capacity. We're prolific throughout DoD, federal civilian, and the intelligence community. But I did want to share a couple of my favorites. I'm not going to go into each and every one of these. Actually, I think all of these use cases you can find online and public-facing success stories. But in summary, without reservation, I can say that Databricks powers the largest and most sophisticated data and AI programs in the federal government. So every wartime asset through DoD, so warheads and warships, every tax dollar, every piece of mail, every veteran going through the veteran benefits experience, multiple components of HHS, so every Medicare claim, every food and drug analysis, all is touched by Databricks. So really powerful use cases around the federal government and some parallels to some of this work to where we see applicability at DOI. Pivoting now to talk a little bit about the platform, really just kind of giving high level of like what Databricks is and how it works, some architecture, if you will, before Sam really gets into the nuts and bolts. Let's start with kind of what the problem is that we're trying to solve. If you look at the Department of Interior and their data and AI ecosystem, there is a sprawl of different tools and capabilities, and that's by requirement. So all of the various bureaus and offices all have varying missions, autonomy and control over the technologies that they use in some sense, which has created a scenario where you have various data lakes. So unstructured data in, I think, all hyperscalers, all major cloud providers are represented at DOI, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. On top of that, you have your data warehouses. So more of your structured tabular data, maybe some traditional legacy tooling like Oracle. I think I saw some representation from the Interior Business Center. I know from discussions there, they have a very large Oracle Analytics investment, but also SQL Server. That's one of the data warehouses we're working with Fish and Wildlife on migrating. And then I think some folks are using a cloud data warehouse in Snowflake. But data needs to move in and out of these repositories. So orchestration and ETL from Informatica, Python, and other tools to move data from your different sources into applications, but also visualization tools. So all the popular ones, Tableau, Power BI, Esri, it's probably a data warehouse, kind of a data visualization specializing in geospatial. We do have a flavor of geospatial that we're going to touch on here today. We have a really tight integration with Esri. Again, a key area in the federal marketplace in terms of use cases. We're going to be doing offering a follow-on session where we do a deep dive into geospatial, but I know that's prolific throughout DOI. Data science continues to scale and grow with Gen AI and traditional machine learning as well. Ton of different tool sets and stacks around DOI that I'm familiar with. I think I saw in the inventory recently there were 30, 40 plus use cases, kind of differing tool sets around the department. Maybe some streaming data coming in to hydrate some of those use cases. And then you have to wrap all of these different capabilities and data silos in governance and security. So this is just what we know about all the different tooling around DOI. It's probably just a sample. There's a lot more. What this creates is a complex environment. So multitude of different workload-specific technologies. So you have a stack for ETL, a stack for structured data, a stack for unstructured data. Wrapping all of that in security and governance creates challenges, one of which is proprietary formatting and vendor lock-in, right? These cloud vendors don't exactly talk to each other, at least they don't coordinate well. You have data that you need to join and analyze, but it's trapped in all of these different applications, which in turn relates to scalability issues. You have to duplicate data to perform functional analysis against it. Your tools aren't exactly talking to each other, which leads to high costs, technical debt, and constraints. I mean, I know there's a lot of folks I think represented from OCIO here today in the Secretary's office who are keen on governance. How do you govern a data and AI estate where you have multiple bureaus, multiple different teams, kind of all doing their own thing? How do you have visibility and control over that? These are the problems that Databricks aims to solve with our data intelligence platform. So I'm going to kind of build this up from the ground up, kind of describing, if you will, how the Databricks platform comes together. Starting with kind of a cloud data lake. Your data, DOI's data, your organization's data, your program's data, any format, any location. It can be in the cloud. You can bring it to Databricks, any cloud vendor. Maybe it's in on-prem or trapped in a SaaS solution like Salesforce or ServiceNow. Wherever that data resides, and this is an important piece, wherever that data resides, Databricks will bring the compute to it. There's no exfiltration. You're not removing that data and dumping it all into like our proprietary data warehouse. We bring the compute to your data. So once we have visibility of your data, we want to make sure that we have a end-to-end governance capability. So this is our Unity catalog functionality. This is lineage. This is role-based access control. This is cost management. This is everything from the entire stack of data and the entire stack of AI controlled in one unified kind of experience. So we're building up the data intelligence platform. We've got our data lake now. We've got our governance all sitting on top of that. And then there's the different functionalities that practitioners need to have access to in order to be successful and deliver on the mission space. So we have an entire AI stack end to end for both generative AI, traditional machine learning, a whole functionality stack around model tuning and serving. From there, in addition to that, we have Databricks SQL. This is the most performant data warehouse in the cloud today. Traditional data warehousing. Trying to progress the slide, too many animations. ETL workflows using different tools and what have you within the same platform for reliably and centralizing your data transformation and ingestion. And then lastly, AI BI. So integrates into Databricks SQL, huge business intelligence and embedded AI capabilities. Actually, we're going to spend a lot of time on this particular functionality today with AI BI because I think it tells a great story. It's how analysts and engineers can interact with the data in plain language and is really getting a lot of attention in the federal space. So the Databricks Data Intelligence Platform is simple. One unified platform, one user interface. Your analysts, engineers, practitioners, and executives can all be working off the same data set. We don't have to over-engineer the access. It's open. So we're based in open source. We have an open ecosystem. We can integrate with any of your tool sets today. It is a modular adoption model in a sense. So I put up all of those logos of all the existing investments that DOI has today. We're not suggesting that you rip out all of that tooling and put Databricks in its place. We are complementary. We can come in and complement certain ETL needs as needed. We can be your data warehouse. We can be your data lake. We meet you where you need us. We do have capability from end to end, but most folks kind of start with a particular functionality and then scale out horizontally or vertically. So we're open and future-proof. We were an AI company before AI was popular. So we've been doing this a long time, second to none in terms of our functionality in that area, but also just the fact that we are purpose-built and end-to-end for data and AI means that you can scale with us as new functionality comes online. So this is just an overview. You're going to kind of see the look and feel of the platform as Sam gets into it. One thing I wanted to highlight here, because the depth and breadth of this platform is immense. So this is all of the functionality and really in like summary example, if you will, of all the different pieces of the capabilities of the platform, of things that we can do with the Databricks Data Intelligence Platform. And the orange pieces are what we're going to touch on today. So we are just scratching the surface, maybe 10% of the capability. That being said, I think we're going to offer some follow-on webinars, do a deep dive into geospatial, as I said, and a deep dive into Gen AI, ML. But for reasons that I hope this makes clear is because, again, there's so much that we can talk about that we want to make sure everyone kind of gets value from the areas that they're interested in. So last slide is an explanation of the use case. So we're going to start with data exploration. So getting a data set, it's synthetic data, but representative of various use cases around Department of Interior. And as an analyst, if you will, or an engineer, we're going to interact with that data. And then once that data has been curated and analyzed, we want to share it. But we want to share it in a way that is governed, secure, and you have visibility and access. And then lastly, downstream, maybe kind of switching hats, switching environments, as I think Sam will touch on. How is that data leveraged? How is it driving decision making? So dashboards or geospatial application. Throughout the entire kind of use case, there's AI embedded. So you'll see that. That is one of the powers of the Databricks platform, is that there are pieces of AI kind of embedded for individuals, whether you're, again, an analyst or an engineer or a scientist. So that's the use case. I see some questions coming in. I'm going to turn it over to Sam for the demonstration. And I'm going to try to break in, like I said, to add some more color to some of the work we're doing. But with that, I will give it back to Sam.
Thanks, Keenan. For everyone on the call, my name's Sam Matthews. I'm a solutions architect working with Keenan. I've been at Databricks for about 2 years. My goal today is to orient everyone with the Databricks platform, and then we'll talk through an example use case and a couple of different features in the platform, both using Amazon and Azure as the kind of backing stores. So this will be super relevant, particularly for you all at DOI, since we know that it's more of kind of a smattering of different clouds and potential kind of cloud hybrid environments. We'll get into that more, but excited to kind of talk through things. You should be able to see my screen right in front of you now. We'll start in Azure. As you can see, I've kind of grouped the tabs I'm going to go through today between Azure and AWS. I'll signpost, but it's not super relevant which storage solution we're using. I'm more just trying to demonstrate kind of both the potential to share data in multi-cloud environments across Databricks environments, as well as just the feature parity between the two platforms. So for everyone that's new to Databricks, you can see that the platform is organized on the left-hand side largely. We tend to put different features based off of user persona or user roles. So a data engineer might live down here. Someone who's doing kind of basic analysis or dashboarding or visualizations might be working in the SQL tab you see here. And then a data scientist might be working with our machine learning tools, but none of these is necessarily siloed. You can use any of the features in Databricks flexibly, regardless of your role, assuming that your organization gives you permissions to. So it's an extremely flexible, comprehensive platform, which I think Keenan drove home really well when he demonstrated all of the features we'd be showing today in his deck. And then also pointed out, there are 3-4 times more features that we could kind of get into. So this is the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully it gives both a good sense of the art of the possible in Databricks and also just shows you how easy and intuitive the platform is, whether you're trying to do analysis, share your data with your colleagues, or visualize it in some form. So without further ado, I'll get into the data. You can see this is kind of our web offering. It's software as a service, so upgrades and all of the maintenance is delivered over the air. You can also see that we have different kind of favorites and other trends going on in your Databricks environment across your teams and your workspaces. I've favorited our Department of Interior catalog that you see right here. You'll see we're working in the data catalog. This is our demonstration environment, so it's much larger and frankly a little bit more disorganized than Department of Interiors would be. But you can see it's largely just a standard sort of 3-level catalog. You create a catalog for all of your data assets. In this case, we have species data, we have water data, and we have some default folders within our catalog as well that contain things like metadata and some of the informations about the catalog schema. Importantly, you can enforce permissions at the catalog level. So I could give a colleague a specific set of permissions, say they're a data editor or they're a data reader. I could give my colleague Alex Hunt specific permissions to kind of do that type of analysis, whether it's browsing or executing. But you can also enforce those permissions at the table level. So I could give one colleague access to my catalog and then only access to certain data within here, whether it's, say, species data. I'll click into species data. As Keenan mentioned, just to put this up top, we're using both synthetic and open source data in the demonstration today. And just for kind of an example, I'm working with this wildlife population data from North America. You can see I can click in and get a sample of what we're looking at. We have populations across various years. We have the states. We have their endangered status, whether they're threatened or something else. We have the states they're present in, as I mentioned, and then their class, mammal, bird, expert, etc. I'm actually going to go to the overview on this data right here, and you can see that because this is a data intelligence platform, AI is baked in virtually every layer of it to improve efficiency and also accuracy. So this data set that I just created, this could be uploaded from a CSV, a spreadsheet. It could come from AWS S3 or Azure ADLS. Really, any target in the cloud, or in many cases now on-prem or on your local disk, is applicable to ingesting and working within Databricks. And so you can also imagine that you could do this with any type of data, right? This is a tabular CSV that is now in Parquet format in Delta, as you can see here, which is our open source kind of open storage format that is used across a variety of platforms, including Databricks. But you could also have, flat files, geospatial data in here, non-structured data, semi-structured data like PDFs, etc. Any data, any format, any size. With that in mind, I just, uploaded this data to the platform from a spreadsheet that the platform had never seen before. And you can see that not only is it kind of inferring the basic schema information about our species data in North America, but it's also doing intelligent kind of metadata analysis. So it has the suggested description that it came up with. It contains, the various descriptors about what's in the data. And then it also gives me, as an analyst who maybe has never seen the data before, proactive ideas, like it's valuable for monitoring and managing wildlife populations, assessing conservation efforts, et cetera, et cetera. The key thing here is we're not replacing humans, we're just making them more efficient and accurate. So as someone who might be familiar with this information, I could accept that information, I could edit the description. I could also come down here and try to generate specific comments for each part of the table schema. So again, the platform's never seen this data before, but it's able to infer just from states in the various years that, for example, this is the population count of a specific species in the year 2018, right? And so I could come in here, I could edit these if I wanted to. We also recently added a cool feature where you can have AI maybe shorten the text, for example, or you could have it translate it to a different language. Not saying that's necessarily what we want to do here, but just an example of some of the new features that are always being pushed to the platform. You can also add specific tags if you're interested in tagging data. So another kind of part of the data catalog functionality. And then you'll also note over here, you can add masking. So if you have sensitive data or specific types of data that you want to mask for either certain user profiles or individual users, you can do that too. Cool. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of other features about our kind of data catalog. As Keenan mentioned, a lot of this permissioning is enforced through something called Unity Catalog, which works across data, but it also works on all of your data assets. So you can use Unity Catalog to lock down things like machine learning models, custom scripts or functions. You can also use it to make sure that any data you share across Databricks environments or non-Databricks environments is secured as well. So you can see, for example, Sam Matthews, I have this privilege to select from this data. I have that privilege because I created the data set. I could also, grant myself all privileges. I could do specific things like applying tags, highly granular, highly programmatic, and extremely secure. Last thing that's kind of worth going through is history and lineage. Because data in Databricks is typically in Delta Lake format, which again is our open source kind of canonical format. It's basically Parquet with a transaction log on top of it, which is what you see in the history tab here. This captures canonically all changes in data over time, right? So I can see that Sam has done these various changes to the data set. And importantly, it has time travel. So if I'm another individual and I look at this data and I say, oh, Sam made this change to this column, I don't want that change to be reflected in my table. I could then select from this wildlife populations table as of, say, timestamp 10 a.m. or version 2, right? And that's one of the key kind of differentiators, I'd say, of Delta Lake. It gives you that full transparency through time that a lot of other formats don't. And on top of that, this then enables you to have full transparency into who is doing what. It's a really good logging tool, and so on. I'll talk about lineage. I actually went ahead today and ahead of kind of our demonstration, created a new table upstream, or excuse me, downstream, I guess in this case, called our species gold table. And if I click into my lineage graph here, I can see how tables are connected programmatically, right? So I can see, for example, that the gold table that I made here is just an extension of this species classification codes table and our raw species populations table. And if you click down, you can actually see which columns map. So say if a column changes or someone adds a column that's a composite of, say, two, maybe you're averaging something, maybe you're capturing specific populations, whatever it is, you can click and see the full kind of lineage automatically through time. That's an extremely powerful tool if you're at an organization that has, say, multiple bureaus that are working together to understand how the kind of different data composites are created across the whole data kind of environment. And then separately also, it's connected to other artifacts, not just tables. So I can see, for example, that this wildlife populations data is used in this functional kind of Databricks notebook, which is very similar to a Jupyter notebook. I have full visibility into every artifact that touches this. Keenan, I saw you came off camera. Did you
Yeah,
want to
so
interject?
yeah, thanks, Sam. So I wanted to just highlight for the audience that the idea of this Unity Catalog capability, the governance, lineage, and role-based access control was paramount to the USGS team that we worked with on an interagency project. So they have both stakeholders internal to DOI, external agencies like NOAA and USDA, but also the public. So these entities come together to create joint data sets, but how do they create these environments where someone still has autonomy and control and visibility into all the data that's needed to create, the visualizations they were looking for. So it seems simple to talk about lineage and role-based access control, but when you talk about the complexities of an interagency project, I think governance is paramount. So I just wanted to highlight that.
100%. Yeah, no, great point. And that's a model that we see particularly in the federal space, I'd say. So that's why I think we've had such strong adoption among federal customers, because a lot of these platform features were built with kind of siloed data environments, on-prem, cloud, hybrid cloud, et cetera, in mind. So thanks, Keenan. Cool. Well, now I'm actually going to do some kind of exploratory analysis on this data. If you go back to kind of this sample here, remember kind of where we're just looking at various species populations across time. You can see I have the option to kind of open a default dashboard. I could query it directly in our SQL editor. I could use a Jupyter notebook functionally. I could create a dashboard. But actually what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use Genie by clicking this Ask Genie button. And this opens up a kind of dedicated analysis window. It may look similar to, say, a ChatGPT where you're asking questions. I think the key difference here is that this is a highly quantitative, tabularly minded analysis tool that basically gives you a natural language conduit for analyzing your data. So instead of having to write maybe complex SQL or even more complex Python, you can just use Genie as kind of your assistant to perform that in the background. And that accelerates your ability to analyze and to draw conclusions, but it also means that you have this kind of cooperative partner that will improve, hopefully, the outputs of your analysis. So you can see that this Genie space is built based off of that same wildlife populations data set we were looking at. If I click history, I can see all of the different queries that I've kind of put on that data. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to ask Genie to basically show us a sample of the data table we were just looking at. And you'll see that Genie has kind of this back and forth interface where it's telling me it's thinking and then explaining the result. You can see here it's just giving me that kind of example of the first 20 rows of the data set, but I can use natural language to start kind of paring this down. I might have a question if I'm an analyst at DOI, say, who is trying to understand the largest populations or the priority populations. I could say, show me the largest mammal populations by population or by size in 2022, right? And so Genie will basically take this natural language question that I pose to it. It will convert that into a quantitative vector, which is part of a vector search. And then without going too much in the weeds, it assesses the similarity of the quantitative representation of my natural language question to the vectorization of the data that we have. And so you can see Genie was intelligently able to understand that I'm looking specifically at mammals. I want to understand in 2022 specifically which of these had the largest populations rounded to the nearest 1,000, I think is what this data represents, right? And so this is useful because I don't have to worry about the SQL code that was used to do that. But I can get it if I want. So I can ask Genie to show me the code. And it's, again, basically auto magic, where Genie is converting this show me the largest mammal populations into not only like targeted, effective SQL, but SQL that is accurate and getting me the outcome that I want, right? And so I'm going to tell Genie this was a good response. And I could ask it to give more explanations. I could say this was actually a bad response and provide my feedback. But that interaction that I'm doing in this natural conversation is actually a way of tuning Genie to become better at your data and better at the types of questions that an analyst like myself might ask, right? So I can even get kind of more transformative in this analysis. I could say, of these top 10 populations, which grew the most or shrank the most since 2018, which I think is the last year we have in our data, right? And so this is a much more complex question. Sometimes it's not perfect, but the bottom line is that this is an iterative process, and you can see that Genie not only anticipated my question effectively, it's demonstrating the change in these populations through time. So we have 1,000, or excuse me, 1,000,000. We have elk that actually went down by 60K, right? But it even went the extra step and gave me that percentage change. And now I can interact with this data. I can sort it. I can download it as its own CSV file, right? And then share it with a colleague or copy this data into something else. This is extremely powerful, not only because as someone who may not know SQL, I'm able to do analysis that previously was locked behind a technical capability that some people may not have, but also, again, this is a conversational iterative process, and that supercharges your analysis as opposed to just asking a SQL query and not really having that back and forth. It's a collaborative effort, and that really mirrors how you might collaborate with a colleague or bounce ideas off of yourself, etc. So Genie is great. It also gives you the ability to maybe visualize some of this stuff. I'm not going to visualize it here because we're going to build a dashboard in the AWS version of kind of our demo. But hopefully this gives you a sense of how you can explore securely with your data using nothing but natural language to get really targeted, useful results. Um, cool. So that's kind of how we're thinking about analysis lately. The next thing I want to do, and I want to be cognizant of time because I think we only have about 10, 15 minutes left before we go to questions. Say now that I've done kind of my analysis and I want to share the table I'm working with a colleague who might be at a different office or a different team or a different bureau, whatever it is, right? So as you can see, Databricks has this tool called Marketplace down in the bottom left-hand corner here. And I've actually already kind of gone to this marketplace. I'll click into it from here so you all can see the front end. Marketplace is where you can share data either as a third party, say one of these S&P companies, Epsilon, what have you, or you can create private exchanges where only certain offices or groups in different kind of environments have access to it. All that really means is as a provider, for example, I could look at Department of Interior, or maybe just interior is a better thing for me to put. But in any case, you would have your own profile for Department of Interior, and you can see that you're able to share specific data. So I actually went ahead and already created the listing of the species data we were working with today. But what it looks like is it's a basically package of all of these interesting tools, right? You have the data set itself, so you have the tables, but you also have notebooks that give you samples of how to work with that data. And in this case, actually, I included the notebook for the quick SQL join I did to create that gold table, where we're adding not only like the species population names, but also the endangered codes. So for example, threatened, endangered, or looks similar to an endangered species, what have you. You can also add really interesting information like, the geographic coverage of the data. You can add the source. So in this case, we talk about how it's synthetic. And then if I click over here, I can also look at the Department of Interior profile. You can see that we have access to, kind of a description of what DOI is, but also you can then click into and visit the website. This again is purely synthetic, just to clarify. So just trying to paint a very clear picture of what this could look like at your organization. So importantly, now we're going to kind of switch over to Amazon. One thing that you've noticed is this is the Microsoft Azure version of Databricks. I'm sharing this data with everyone who has a Databricks environment because it's on the public marketplace, but I could privately share it with someone in an AWS environment or even their local Python environment using Delta sharing, which is what you see powers our marketplace. So just bear that in mind. Today, I'm going to be kind of doing it through public stuff. But that private secure functionality exists too, and you have additional controls when you list it publicly. You can make it cost money, for example, but you can also provide it for free. So I've clicked over into our AWS environment. As you can tell, this looks almost identical. It just doesn't have the Azure logo up here. Say that I am now kind of more of a business intelligence or maybe even an executive who is trying to get to more decision making or visualization capabilities. So my buddy at this other interior agency shared something. I'll go ahead and look in providers for interior. And you can see that that same data set, again, we're in AWS. This is a totally different Databricks account than the Azure environment we were working for most of this call. This information comes up, it's checked. And when I click on it, it gives me that kind of same preview that you saw when we shared the data, but it also gives me the option to then open that data and start working with it. So for example, right here, I have kind of a preloaded version of this. I'll open the data and then it'll pull up that same data set in our Databricks environment and give me the ability to start working with it in real time. I guess the other thing that's kind of key to call out here is that when I'm doing this as kind of someone who's accessing the data, you can virtually uninstall the product too, which means that you're not necessarily creating tons of duplicative storage. You're not doing anything that is going to dramatically alter your environment, but it's also modular. So if I decide I don't want to use this, it's not a big deal. Cool. So as you can see, this again is my new Amazon environment. I'm an entirely different person who just downloaded this data from the Azure environment that my colleague posted or published on it. And you can see I now have access to this gold table. Should look pretty similar to what I was working with in Azure, but you can see that the comments that my colleague put here are reflected. You can also see that if I were to click up here, I can then work with that data. So instead of doing a Genie space like we did now, I'm going to create something a little bit more substantive in the form of a dashboard. And you can see again that because AI is built into the platform, it's trying to render some kind of default visualizations based off of our species data without my input. And that's just a typical kind of best practice for the product. But this is a highly flexible drag and drop environment. And it's not just, like a typical visualization suite where you put in rows and columns like a Tableau or a Power BI. They're great tools, but this has data and AI baked in. So first of all, you can see that my dashboard is looking at the data and giving me suggestions on what I might want to visualize, right? So it's already prompting more creative analysis. I'm actually going to say like which species are distributed by which state, right? And you can see again that I can ask our BI dashboards to visualize this information without writing any code. So where previously I would have to write some sort of SQL statement or some other kind of query to populate my visualization, I'm getting to these distributions by state without any code involved. And then I can still do other things, right? I can customize it. I could maybe filter this and say I only want to look at 2018 or whatever the filtration is, right? It's again incredibly customizable, and I can continue then to work with Assistant to refine my analysis if I want to. So that's like a pretty solid visualization. Cool. I'll do one other just to kind of paint the picture of what's possible. I'll say, maybe show me the species that are, or actually, here's what we'll do. We'll do show me a pie chart of only birds, right? Pretty simple visualization. But again, I don't have to filter the data just so that the species is mammals, right? And in general, it gives me this kind of a visualization. I could also say, this doesn't look totally right. Like it's pretty clear to me that a beaver isn't a bird. And that just gives me the opportunity to then go in here and look at the various fields and filter again. So it's highly iterative. Hopefully this gives a sense of what's possible when visualizing. But dashboarding is not the full story, right? One of the important and cool things you can do here is if you publish your dashboard, you can, first of all, include Genie in the dashboard. So if I were to click on this and look at this published dashboard, I can then use that same Genie tool to start intelligently asking questions about the data in real time. Importantly, also, I can share this dashboard and these visualizations with or without Databricks environments. So this is a huge feature. Anyone can access this dashboard securely if I give them kind of access to this canonical link. So you're not locked into using the Databricks dashboarding solution. You don't have to get rid of your other solutions like a Tableau. This is meant to interoperate in your ecosystem effectively. So just wanted to give a sense of what's possible. Again, I could really quickly start creating analysis and then start filtering and doing whatever. Again, also, this is highly dynamic. So if I click into certain populations, right, it starts affecting what's shown in my other visualizations. So really powerful tool that we're just getting started with, and we're super excited about it. It's probably my favorite part of the new platform, if I'm being honest. Cool. Well, we don't have a ton of time left, and I know I've gone super quickly, so I appreciate everyone bearing with me. I just wanted to give one more sense of what's possible in the platform. This is a dashboard that's great, but maybe I'm someone who wants to build something that's even kind of further along in the maturity curve of a data artifact, and I'm going to build an application. I'll go up here and click New, and then click New App. And you can see that you can get started today building production grade applications, whether they're chatbots, visualizations, or just simple hello world apps in Databricks right now. What's really cool about this is you can use popular tools like Gradio or Shiny or Streamlit. You can also, if you click custom, bring in your custom code and start locking it down within Databricks Unity Catalog with full governance and then serve it to anywhere in your organization. Importantly, what a lot of folks are doing is using these templatized apps, and then they're actually opening this up to the public, where you have all of your data, you have Databricks, organizing and securing that. And then you also have your machine learning and all of your analysis and business intelligence in Databricks. Why not include your business applications, including the ones that give you that front end view? We actually went ahead and using some of the species data and some of the geospatial information from Fish and Wildlife Service, we built our own application right here. Again, pretty rough draft, but this was built in maybe an hour, and this is a visualization of various species habitats from that species data. You can see this is a front-end application that I could serve to the public today, right? And that's really powerful because it required very little development work. And more importantly, it's still locked into Databricks Unity Catalog and all of our governance. So it gives you that full end-to-end kind of visibility on what you're working with. This is just kind of an example, pretty basic kind of check marks, but you can start kind of slicing and dicing some of the territories that these species inhabit. This is something called HEX. It's kind of an H3 geospatial analysis method that we've worked on with a couple of different folks across different interior teams and parties. And so, yeah, just want to kind of show you all what's possible. We're really excited about the work we've done with DOI and in perpetuity into the future because you all have such fascinating data and correspondingly also a really powerful, important mission. I mean, not just things like species conservation, but also water efficiency. I mean, the use cases are impactful and endless. And so we've loved kind of collaborating with you all and a lot of your data scientists, but this is just kind of getting started, and that's kind of where I want to leave you all. Keenan, anything to add? I can stop sharing otherwise, and we can go to Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. That was, again, I think a really great demonstration of various capabilities within the platform. So started with data exploration, ingesting a data set, doing some manipulation against it, allowing our Genie tool to query the data for analysis, kind of plain language. And then, sharing and the governance capabilities cannot be overlooked. There is I think more than almost any other agency that I've worked with personally, there is more interagency efforts within DOI and external partners than any other government agency I've worked with. So I know there's a ton of those kinds of use cases. So things like Unity Catalog and governance are going to be important. I want to put up on the screen briefly some things we're going to follow up on. So here we go. Are you seeing the sandbox slide?
We're seeing the Eventbrite page.
Bear
There you
with
go.
us again. All right. So there are some questions. First, while I work through this, Sam, the first question, is there any latency issues when connecting the Databricks environment to the data repositories?
Yeah, good question, Don. That is a very loaded question in the sense that we would want to have a sense of what you mean by a repository. I will say that latency in Databricks is going to be lower than any other tool that you're kind of looking at to do analogous workloads because importantly, we maintain a separation of storage and compute. So what we're doing is bringing compute to your data in your existing cloud environment, right? What that means is if you're in AWS, Azure, what have you, we're basically providing our platform on top of your virtual private cloud. And so that means you don't have to copy or move data between cloud stores and environments, but also it means all of your data stays in your secure environment and you don't have to pay exfiltration costs or worry about security. So that's a larger kind of conceptual architectural thing that I'd be happy to talk through with anyone on the call. But in terms of latency, it means that regardless of the specific data set in question or warehouse or tool, it's going to be much faster than if you were working with a tool that required you to move or copy the data outside of your existing storage tools. So hopefully that gives you a flavor. Other questions?
Yeah. This is kind of a simple one, but you just touched on it, but to kind of foot stomp, where does the data stored? Is it in Databricks?
Yeah. So as I was saying, it remains in your existing storage containers in the cloud. We also have third-party tools like Fivetran, and also we recently acquired a tool called Arceon that are enabling us to build out the ability to work with data that's stored on-prem as well. So TBD on that, but it's basically already in the platform and should be GA very soon. So all of that is to say, it's stored where it's already stored. If you want it to be moved, we can help you with that too. But our goal is to just facilitate the scalable and flexible access to compute and all of our software features without kind of ruffling any feathers in terms of the data storage environment. One additional layer there that I'll kind of get to is what this manifests as is there are two planes in Databricks. There is a storage or data plane where your data resides. That's existing in your virtual private cloud. And then we have a control plane that Databricks manages, which does things like manage the metadata for Unity Catalog and also kind of sends the instructions to ensure that your compute stays scaled up or down depending on your data needs, things like that. So that separation is really good because it lowers your total cost of owning or working with a platform like Databricks. But it also means that new platform features, maintenance is extremely flexible and easy to roll out. So you're going to be getting the best features very quickly too. What else?
I'll take this one. How much does Databricks cost effectively is the question. So that is a loaded question in a sense. We do have online pricing calculators. I think I'll highlight that it's consumption based. So you are only paying for what you use, like your cloud environment, but only when compute is being triggered. So in the system itself, as you navigate, there's no cost there. There's no upfront cost to get the environment stood up. Please, as you get into the trial, you'll see like how easy it is to interact with. Sam, do you want to add any more color to, just the cost structure?
No, I think just the only thing that's relevant is we think this is a really good model for everyone because it aligns incentives. We only get paid if you guys are deriving value from the platform, as Keenan alluded to. And then also, your costs are super transparent and monitorable. So you're able to track individual usage through time. You can model out how much you want to use in a given month or year. It's a really flexible and valuable cost model, in my opinion. And you avoid a lot of the kind of downsides of maybe a firm fixed price or something else that's based off of the number of seats or licenses. So I like it.
Yeah. One more point there is we do have analyzer tools. We can look at your current data estate, depending on what kind of format it's in, to give you a readout on what the translation cost would be. If you were to run these kinds of jobs, this kind of data set, this volume, velocity in Databricks, what's the cost? A lot of folks might start there just to understand, apples to oranges in a sense, like what the cost model differences are. And those are usually, good barometers if it makes sense to adopt something like Databricks. Um, Another kind of simple one. What is your FedRAMP status? So we have FedRAMP moderate and high. We're again deployed across DoD, civilian, and intelligence agencies. Security is paramount to our platform. Huge investments in things like Unity Catalog and other features, functionalities to promote within our customers. The ability to control both the end-to-end of data and AI. There's a lot of attention on artificial intelligence and particularly Gen AI. I think people, and there's probably some folks here on the call that would agree that there's people are ignoring the data part of the equation. So garbage in, garbage out, having control, access, visibility, and controlling the whole life cycle of your data and AI is critical. Think I think we answered. Oh, can you describe tools that you have more for data scientists? Sam, can you touch on that? I think we talked like a lot about engineering and
Yeah.
analytics, but scientist tools.
Yeah, I can share the platform again really quickly to just do a quick
Sure.
summary on that if
Yeah.
that's not too much.
One more plug though, just for those that would like to learn more, email us at the alias there to get access to the sandbox. I think if you've registered or attended, you'll automatically get invited to these upcoming webinars. Because like I said, there's a ton more that we haven't touched on. So I'll stop sharing and let Sam get into a little bit of the data scientist stuff.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we tend to organize our tools based off of persona. So a data scientist would benefit, first of all, from a lot of these tools already, right? Like in order to do good data science, you need good data pipelines, you need good kind of analysis to kind of explore it. But some of the dedicated tools, first of all, we have something called Playground. This is actually your kind of gateway to any of the foundation models on the internet. So obviously, you can kind of lock certain models down if you don't want people to use it, but I can basically connect to DBRX and maybe Meta 3.1, and then I can start comparing how these LLMs work in tandem. So, for example, I'll say what endangered species should be a priority
Hey,
for
Mal, are
my.
you sharing your screen?
I thought it was, yeah. Is it not shown?
I'm seeing you and I. Um,
Hmm.
The
Can someone in
screen's
the
being
chat?
shared.
It is, Nick?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in India. Apologies.
Okay, cool. No, 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 that's good. Keeping me honest. And I can start seeing how these two LLMs compare against each other. This isn't strictly data science, and I'll get to traditional machine learning in a second, but this is the first tool. You can also see that I can add additional kind of parameters here. So this is an example of different tokens. You can do different thresholds for sampling or for kind of the number of tokens you want to K-filter. So going at light speed here and trying to summarize this well, but just want to give a flavor. Experiments is a really powerful tool. What this does is basically it will intelligently run your machine learning model over and over again. So you can see we use open source AutoML. I select a cluster and then I can select input training data and then start running experiments. Let me see if I have an example experiment. This is kind of old and it's from our work at FAA, but basically if you click into an experiment, it tests your machine learning model. Yeah, this one's okay. We don't have any runs, so I'm sorry, folks. But basically, in this runs pane that you'd see, you'll see different models with different hyperparameters included, and it'll run all of those and then give you the ideal evaluation as to which parameters and inputs you should use across all of your runs. That's a really valuable tool, AutoML. We have feature stores, which allows you to specifically store feature tables in Databricks and keep them locked down. Again, these are just examples from our demonstration environment, but you can see that your feature store looks like a normal data table. But then importantly, you can connect it to AutoML and MLflow as you go through the machine learning cycle. You can also tag it so you can see this is an analytics tool. You can see that some of the online stores are then baked in here as well. Really powerful. And then we also have model serving. So anytime you want to use a model, you can register it to Unity Catalog. This is actually work I was doing with a different agency, but as part of creating a retrieval augmented generation system, the model that I was using to power that kind of chatbot, it has all the versioning kind of logged here. You can see it's its own artifact, and then I can serve this model if I want to a colleague and create an endpoint where they get access to it. And you can see I have access to my model right here and all the features. I can pick the compute type. So again, this is all scalable. It's all flexible using ephemeral infrastructure. Super cool tools. There's a lot more to it, but those are some of my favorites. Overall, I would say that Databricks in traditional machine learning, that is one of our strongest capabilities, if not our strongest. It is certainly where we got kind of our start and where we cut our teeth with Spark. So if you are a data scientist, I can without reservation say this is the best data science platform for comprehensive machine learning and generative AI as well, which we haven't gotten into. So fairly long-winded answer, but hopefully that clarifies things for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So our friend from Interior Office of the Secretary, Jeff, would like me to highlight access to the AI models via API is one way to reduce the replication of AI ML capabilities of multiple embedded PaaS and SaaS. So,
Correct.
right, that's a great call out, Jeff. I think the whole mantra here at Databricks is to reduce your technical debt, right? Reusability. A lot of what we've talked about in terms of machine learning, getting back to some of the USGS examples, a ton of different um, projects that are one-offs, right? There's not a lot of repurposing of some of the either, IP or resourcing that some of these agencies invest in scientific endeavors and analysis. So same thought can be applied to your ML AI environment, right? We want to repurpose, reuse, and democratize the access to data and AI to make agencies more efficient, effective, and what have you.
Yeah, just one piece of color I wanted to add on that. I think what Jeff said is really important. Yeah, we're not making it so you have to duplicate work. You don't have to train your own models. And you can see you have access to all of the best in breed. Like Claude 3.5 Sonnet's my favorite personally, but you're not stuck on that. And we have a huge partnership with Meta and Llama, and Llama is actually going to be the kind of tuned and model of preference for Databricks long term, just in terms of open source. But you also get access to all of the custom models you've already trained locally, right? And so you get that API access in one interface, and you can then compare, say, DBRX and Mixtral against my local like trained agents model. That's really cool. Being able to do that side by side comparison visually, and then to be able to sync and add individual prompts. I think it's a great tool, and I appreciate the point that was surfaced by the audience, just because I think, as Keenan said, this is actually really critical, and it's going to mean kind of the difference between AI being lots of noise and AI being summarized, intelligible, actionable insight long term, in my opinion. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but thanks, Keenan.
Thanks, Sam. Well, we are right at time. We are nothing but efficient. Thank you, Sam, for a great demonstration. Thank you to the audience for joining and some great questions. Again, we have some upcoming webinars. I think deep diving into some things that we just touched on here, being geospatial right before the holidays, and then going into January, some Gen AI and ML, right? Focusing on the full end-to-end life cycle. So controlling your data, controlling your models, evaluating and measuring, and all the great impacts that those can have. So thank you again to all. Thank you, Sam and Nick, for my co-hosts, and look forward to some of the follow-on discussions. Thank you all. Have a great day.